Hello, good evening. This is CK Live 27105, and I am Curtis Walker. And we have started this page so we can give you some, hopefully, great content. Maybe it's entertainment, maybe it's inspirational, maybe it's informational. So that was the whole purpose. And we are in the midst of the 2020 coronavirus pandemic. And for anyone that's living in Winston-Salem, it has affected all of our lives in some shape, in some way or form. So I just want to spend some time with you tonight. Thank you for viewing, if you're viewing. Thank you for allowing me to spend time with you. And I'm listening to You Can Be a Hero or Hero by Cutlass. And I believe that crisis does bring out the hero in all of us, as you see on our site. There's definitely a promotional or a video that I created that shows a little bit about Winston-Salem today. I was out and about, as well as the other pictures that make us who we are. So I'm so thankful for tonight. I'm thankful that we have our health, we have our strength. I'm thankful that even in the midst of all of this, if we take moderate measures and we take a long-term view, I believe that we can get through all of this. So, as I said, this is CK Live 27105. I am Curtis Walker. And I guess you're one to ask, why does it say CK Live 27105? Okay, well, I'm Curtis, so C Curtis and then K, because the hope is this is a long-term venture and we'll have an opportunity to bring on another host. I'm I have someone in mind, and I think that would be great. And then live, obviously, because we're live. 27105, I happen to live in the 27105 in Winston-Salem, and obviously my name. Curtis Walker. So let's jump right into it. Obviously, the 2020 pandemic, otherwise known as the human coronavirus, has taken the nation by storm. We read a lot about it in the paper. If you're on CNN or Fox News, Twitter, or any of social media, you see that it is everywhere. There are a lot of different opinions. And when you walk the streets, if you do walk the streets and go out and shop, obviously there's one thing that is on everybody's mind, because as soon as the trucks come in the morning, it's gone, and that is toilet tissue. It's rather odd for me. I grew up in New York, so having been raised in New York, even though I was born in Florida, that's right, I was born in West Palm Beach, Florida, and then as a child, my mother brought me to New York. Being raised in New York, you have a different outlook because it's such an international city. And that's a good point to bring up, because we live in Winston-Salem, which is not an international city, even though we have, within 30 minutes, there's Greensboro PTI, and then obviously there's the Winston-Salem PTI right here. But those are also on small scales in comparison to Charlotte International, or Atlanta, or Washington Dulles, or Reagan, or Newark International, JFK, LaGuardia, Orlando International. Those airports are generally much bigger, have a lot more usage, customers running through them. They have a lot more traffic, so you're dealing with a lot more of the international customer on a daily basis. Us, or we, having lived in Winston-Salem since 2012, I think we have a population, I can look it up, I'll bring it up. I think we have a population somewhere along the lines of 200 and something thousand. I'm gonna pull it up right now. Winston-Salem population. And it says right now that our population is 242,000, 2003 as of the last census, and the census has just started. I know I received a letter or an envelope to take the census maybe last week, so we will be getting some results of that coming soon. Not this year, probably more than likely, but in the coming years we'll get another identifiable statistic of the population of Winston-Salem. That being said, Winston-Salem population is a lot smaller than New York City or the 5 boroughs. When people ask me about New York, they always think that New York is that encompasses all of the population, but it does not. So there's Manhattan, there's Brooklyn, there's the Bronx, there's Queens, there's Staten Island, and then there's like a little part-time Inwood, Brentwood, if I'm correct, I'm saying it wrong. And then there's Long Island, which is kind of got 2 parts. There's Nassau, and as there's Suffolk. Growing up in Hempstead, Long Island, you travel back and forth into Winston-Salem. Into New York. You can take the bus, or you can take the train, or you can drive on the LIE or the Southern State Parkway. You can take the Belt Parkway, depending on the route that you have to go and where you have to go within the 5 boroughs of New York. So New York City in itself is Manhattan, where most people would think of 42nd Street, 34th Street, and Broadway. A lot of the great eateries, a lot of the outdoor places to eat, or cafes, things of that nature. And then, of course, there's 34th Street, Penn Station. And then you got the PATH train that leads you into New Jersey, and that's New York City. And then there's around New York City, as well as Lower Manhattan and Upper Manhattan. And then you go up to the Bronx. And then you cross the Brooklyn Bridge and you go into Brooklyn and you find out where the mayor lives, Gracie Mansion. And also then there's Queens. And across the water, again, there's Staten Island. Most people would think Staten Island will probably think of the Statue of Liberty. So that's New York. But when people think of New York, they generally just say everything is New York, as well as there's upstate New York. I happen to work for one of the companies that has a headquarters in New York, but one of its main places of doing business is actually in upstate New York. And then, of course, there's great places that we all know about, like Buffalo, New York. We think about Syracuse University. We think about where most of the business for the state of New York happens, up in Albany, the Tri-Capital region. And then there's further up by Plattsburgh, Clinton, Dannemora, which has an infamous name. I'm pretty sure you can Google it and find out why Clinton, Dannemora has an infamous name. And then there's out in the West where people like Lucille Ball became or is famous and is recognized. And I think that's in Jamestown, New York, as well as Rochester Institute of Technology, big school, school that I went to, Medaille College, Genesee Community College, just for a little bit, had a couple of semesters in those schools. And if I talk too fast, that is because obviously I am a New Yorker, and most New Yorkers do talk fast. But things have changed. So that gives a little bit of background into New York. I will tell you a little bit of background of myself. I came to Winston-Salem in 2012. I believe it was October 11th. I've told the story to my college president and in front of several people. So I came down here with a bus ticket and clothes on my back. And 7 years later, you're actually in my home right now. I have no problem welcoming you in my home. This is my little office that I'm trying to situate. It's getting there. So I came in 2012. I think my first job, in fact, I know my first job was Pizza Hut. I was a delivery driver. Yes, I was. So I probably delivered a few pizzas to your house if you lived in Winston-Salem and the 27127 area code. And after that, then I worked for K&W, and then I worked for Advanced Auto in Welcome. That's right, store 6035, if I'm correct. And then I began to work in Tyson, which is in Western North Carolina. Obviously, being a New Yorker and then moving out to the western part of the state, which I would call small town America. I had a home apartment right in Wilkesboro, and I used to work for Tyson Food in production, and also as an inventory clerk. And now I work for another company, which is a Fortune 5 company, and I'm not going to tell you that one. So that's surprise, surprise, surprise. And so that gives you a little bit of my work background. As I said, I grew up in New York. I am not a New York Yankee. Well, I am a New York Yankee fan, but I'm not a Jet or a Giant fan. I'm actually a Dallas Cowboy fan. So don't hate me on that. And I like Duke. I hate the name Duke Blue Devils, but I do root for Duke. It's a shame the ACC tournament was canceled. So many different sporting events. And I tell you, just thinking about that, how this virus, this quote-unquote national emergency pandemic has changed the fiber of our society. Think about all the things that are not going on right now. So you don't have concerts. I think the government issued a decree or a policy now that we should not be gathering in more than 10 clusters, 10 people clusters. And I think in North Carolina, we're still at 50. I know that when I was driving around just now in North Carolina, I did see that a lot of people were going to like Papa John's or pizza stores or Chili's or Chick-fil-A. Incidentally, Chick-fil-A had the people, their sales or CSRs, the ones that in front, that take your order, they were actually outside by the drive-thru, and they were taking the orders right there. I found that to be really, really amazing. But of course, Chick-fil-A is a great company. I like Chick-fil-A. Most people like Chick-fil-A. And they were outside taking the orders, and I guess they were then hand delivering them from the door to the car. Excuse me. Also, as I walked around Winston-Salem, I noticed that downtown, it was about 6 o'clock, so between 5 and 6, there's like rush hour, and then obviously there are people that are living downtown that actually work downtown. And then downtown obviously has a lot of venues where you can go and eat, whether it be Chinese, Thai, just getting a simple burger, or people just jogging around. And this is a Tuesday. No, it's a Wednesday, so it's the middle of the week, and the streets were almost barren. The bus station, obviously in the center, or depending on where you're standing at, it was semi-crowded. And some of the things that I did notice were there were people that were, I don't know if they were homeless or not, but generally you see some people that are on the lower, I guess, of the outskirts or the fringe of society that need public assistance or health or whatever the social services are needed. And I wondered for myself that during this crisis, during this quote unquote extraordinary time that we live in now in the United States of America, and particularly I'm talking about Winston-Salem, what happens to the people that were customarily going to get food stamps or some type of social service or had to go to some type of clinic, and now how does this affect their life? How do they get the services that they need when we're under a situation where we can't group? There's no crowds. There's a lot of buildings where the employees will go in, but those that are customarily needing their services probably will not be allowed to enter. So there are definitely social issues that have arisen since the pandemic has struck our nation. And I think, and I was over at my mother's house, I think one of the things that was unique, so I was talking to her and she was talking to somebody on the phone, and I happened to look at the TV. I think it was either MSNBC or CNN, and it said that now the confirmed cases of those that are infected or contracted, however you want to say it, was at about 7,000. Now, I guess one of the things that I do is, so if you take, and I do have a calculator, a couple days ago I did this, and I will do it now because I like to do it right in front of you, so it's kind of interactive, or not. But so let's just take the number 7,000, and we take the number 7,000, and then we divide it by 327 million, which is approximately the population of the United States. And so I get 0.0030 2140.672, and then if you take the decimal point and you move it to the right to get a percentage of the population, so that is still less than 1% of the population that has been infected or contracted the novel coronavirus. Okay, so I know we're just talking. I think that's unique in the fact that if I were to pull up those, and I'm just pulling it up just for the sake of conversation, and I'm glad you're all watching. So flu infections 2020, and I'll pull that up. So the CDC is reporting that over 22 million flu infections in the United States so far this season, according to the weekly U.S. influenza surveillance report data published for week 5, ending February 1st, 2020. In addition, 210,000 Americans have been hospitalized and 12,000 have died of the flu, according to the CDC weekly U.S. influenza surveillance report. And it says flu infections hit 22 million Americans. Now, what's different about that, and then I'm pulling the January 30, 2020 article from CNN Health. A deadly virus is spreading from state to state and has infected 26 million Americans so far. It's the flu. That's what CNN reports by Scotty Andrew, February 19, 2020. February 19, 2020 was approximately 30 days ago. I'm pretty sure that you're aware of that. So, approximately 30 days ago, CNN reported that a deadly virus was spreading from state to state and has infected 26 million Americans so far, and that virus was called the flu. Then, in this same article, CNN reports the novel coronavirus that's sickening thousands globally and at least 15 people in the U.S. This is February 19. Is inspiring countries to close their borders and Americans to buy up surgical masks quicker than major retailers can restock them. There's another virus that has infected at least 26 million Americans across the country and killed at least 14,000 people this season alone. It's not a new pandemic, it's influenza. Those are the first two sentences in the article on February 19th. They contrast a deadly virus spreading from state to state, 26 million Americans, and then novel coronavirus sickening thousands globally and at least 15 people in the U.S. is inspiring countries to close their borders and Americans to buy up surgical masks quicker than major retailers can restock them. I didn't make that up. That was the news on February 19, 2020. And now I'm just going to type in coronavirus right now and just see what it has. So I'm looking at COVID-19 outbreak, North Carolina, our state. Confirmed cases, 71. Fatal, 0. Recovered, 0. United States cases, 9,285. Fatal, 150. Recovered, 106. Global cases, 218,768. Fatal, 8,944. Recovered, 84,446. And then it gives a map that's covered. And so now I will look at this coronavirus disease 2019 from the CDC, Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. It's their site. This is what they say. It's right here. And so it gives you updates on the COVID and the 19 cases in the U.S. And cases in the U.S. I'm going to go back. And there's a Wikipedia. There's symptoms, treatments, and variants. There's coronavirus, human coronavirus types. And I think this is one that we should definitely talk about. So the human coronavirus types, it says that they're known for crown-like spikes on their surface. There are 4 main subgroupings of coronaviruses known as alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. So alpha coronavirus is 229E, alpha coronavirus NL63, beta coronavirus is 0643, and beta coronavirus HKU1. And then there's some other coronaviruses. There's MERS, and there was SARS, which we know about. So people around the world commonly get affected with human coronaviruses 229E, NL63, OC43, and HKU1. And sometimes these coronaviruses that infect animals can evolve and make people sick and become a new human coronavirus. 3 recent examples of this are 2019 nCoV, SARS-CoV, and MERS-CoV. Now this comes from the CDC. Now on the news, I know that they were trying to figure out the origin of the coronavirus, and I'm just going to type that in so you can see that I'm typing it in before we actually get into doing some things. Origin of coronavirus. News about coronavirus, that comes up. Science should explain origin of coronavirus. What is coronavirus? January 30, 2020. January 24th, what is coronavirus origins? What's the origin of the Wuhan coronavirus outbreak? January 30, 2020. In fact, let's look at that article real quick. This comes from the Medical Daily. So when the first case of the novel coronavirus was first confirmed, it was reported that man got exposed in a free market in Wuhan that sold all types of different animal meats but didn't specify which animal. So where exactly did the virus originate? According to previous reports, a type of snake may be the original source of the Wuhan coronavirus. However, other health and infectious disease experts are mostly looking at bats as the ultimate culprit. So coronavirus, when you look at the genetic sequence of the virus, you match it up with every known coronavirus. The closest relatives are from bats, according to Dr. Peter Daszak, president of the environmental nonprofit EcoHealth Alliance. Yeah, that's what he says. All right, so we know there are different strains of it or different types of it. There's 4 types of it. And then we're kind of up in the air about exactly where it came from, who or why it happened. Was it Chinese? You have different theories and different people that would say, oh, this is espionage, or this is a conspiracy, or who's in it, who's involved in it, and so forth. The fact remains is that it's here. And since it's here, we are dealing with it as obviously people, individually and collectively, as a nation. So what I wanted to get into was the fact, there are a couple things. So people are buying toilet paper, that's one. People or in our community or individuals that are below poverty level will eventually begin to suffer. And then the supply chain that involves the production of materials and getting the materials from point A to point B. That means getting the material from the natural resource that it comes from all the way into the customer's hand with satisfaction. That's kind of supply chain logistics in a nutshell, and how this pandemic is affecting all of us from that point. All right, so I am CK Live 2715, and I am Curtis Walker. So the first thing that we've talked about, excuse me, just gonna take a swig real quick. Is there's the coronavirus, and I'm glad that I have my trusty marker. This coronavirus, otherwise known as COVID-19. All right, and there are 4 types. These are things that we know. Possibly originated in Wuhan, China market. Okay, and now it has became a pandemic, which means that many people around the world have contracted it, and it's similar to the flu, and depending on who you ask, it's not as deadly. So that's what we know. I'm going to erase that and then get into some other things about this coronavirus that I find unique, not to mention what we're doing as a country. So when we look at risk, one of the stories that I read the other day, I think it was 50 people, I'm going to try and look it up, 50 people contract coronavirus in Washington nursing home. Ah, yes. So there it is. It's on the Fox. Washington State Nursing Home sees. This is on the Fox News. It's published 4 days ago. Washington State Nursing Home sees nearly 50 employees test positive for coronavirus. Nearly 50 employees of Life Care Center of Kirkland, the Seattle area nursing home that has been an epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak in the U.S., have tested positive for the virus, according to a report. The results from Public Health, Seattle, and King County, the health agency that serves the nation's 15th largest metropolitan area, were reported in a Twitter post by a reporter from Seattle's Kiro-TV. The figures show 47 employees tested positive, 24 tested negative, 1 test was inconclusive, and 5 test results were pending. In addition, 18 more employees were to be tested by Saturday. Overall, 95 employees showed coronavirus symptoms, the agency added, according to Kiro. And then it goes on and on, and so you can look that up. It's by Dom Calicchio of Fox News, and this was published 4 days ago, and I thought that was an interesting article. Obviously, it says that Seattle and the King County, the health agency that serves the nation's 15th largest metropolitan area. So I'm just going to go ahead and put down large metropolitan areas. And I believe there's a reason for large metropolitan area, I think I'm spelling it wrong. I am spelling it wrong. Metropolitan. Excuse me. Metropolitan. There's a reason that large metropolitan areas would probably be or provide at-risk people. So we know that the elderly, and I'm going to put that down, and we also know minors. When I say minors, I'm going to say children 5 or below. And then we know that those are the two major, and then people with underlying conditions, health conditions. Those people are definitely at risk. Now that's kind of what we think, or what is being put out there, but then this is what I will also say, and that's why large metropolitan nation areas coming. International travelers or those in contact. So people that are at risk, it seems, are people that live in large metropolitan areas. Obviously, the elderly. There's minors, and there's underlying conditions. Now, this is just from what I've been following, and now I'm going to pull it up. People at risk for infection of coronavirus. Okay, just like the flu, people who are older or who have other health conditions have a higher risk of developing a serious coronavirus infection. People who are 80 years or older have the highest fatality rate, 14.8%. And heart disease is the health condition that puts you most at risk for dying from coronavirus. And then, according to the CDC, people who are at higher risk for severe illness. Some people may be at higher risk of getting very sick from this illness. This includes older adults, people who have serious underlying medical conditions like heart disease, diabetes, lung disease. I'm not a rocket scientist. Now, why would elderly or minors or underlying conditions be considered a problem? And I would probably go immune system. So the nature of life is that we are young and then we get older. We start off with a limited capacity in our immune system, as well as the development of our bodies. And so we're weaker when we're young. We may not see it, but we know that kids are very vulnerable as they're young. And then when we're older, we know that our parents, and including us when we get older, we will become a little bit more vulnerable because our immune system, our bones are frail, our physioskeletal system, it changes, our nervous system is decaying because the body is naturally decaying for the moment that we come out of the womb, and even before that. But that's another issue when we talk about the sanctity of life. Okay, and so then people that are suffering from underlying conditions. The 50 people that contracted the coronavirus in Washington, it appears this was a nursing home, and they were elderly, or they were suffering from underlying conditions, and it was in a large metropolitan area. So that we would say that is a recipe for the possibility of multitudes of people contracting the virus. And I'm just taking that one stance for that one city that's happened to be the 15th largest metropolitan area, according to that article on Fox. And then Seattle, I believe, I'm going to look it up right in front of you and just say this. I've never been to Seattle, but I believe that Seattle has an international import. And I believe that we can all think this through, right? So SeaTac Airport is on International Boulevard in Seattle, and the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, which is SEA. Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, home, Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, home, follow at FlyC, social media, so forth and so on. So, think about all of the factors, all of the conditions that would have to be in play for us to have a large, quote-unquote, infection rate of a population. So there's a large metropolitan area, which is Seattle. It's probably got a lot of international travelers or those that come in contact with, international travelers. And then the nursing home had elderly and underlying conditions, those that were sick from underlying conditions. And that brings us to our next point. And I don't want the blackboard to fall. So let's talk about commuting. And let's talk about the circle. So again, I stated earlier that I work for a company, and I commute 1 hour per day. That's not normal, so I'm going to type in, again, just so you see it, I'm doing it right in front of you, daily commute, Winston-Salem to work. According to this, walk and commute downtime, then there's dry flow, daily commute from Winston and Charlotte, Winston commute times, February 24th, 2009. And then it gives that out right there. but the average person from Ronaldo Road to near Shadowline, 15 to 20 minutes. Ronaldo Road, Robin Hood Road, 15 to 20 minutes. Country Club, 15 to 12 minutes. Assuming you mean Stratford, 20 to 25 minutes. So in Winston-Salem, for most people that work here in Winston-Salem, I do not work in Winston-Salem, I am a commuter. The average commute for them, this is mine, this is theirs. Say, I'm gonna go the largest scale and go 25 minutes, which makes, say, a total of 50 minutes, right? Mine's becomes 2 hours. That's my daily commute. And I can tell you right now that I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm out the door generally between 5:25 and 5:33, and I arrive at work around 6:38, 6:40 in Newton, North Carolina. Most people work within this radius here, and so they will get up and they can take their time, or if you have to drop the kids off, whatever the case may be, but you commute within a circumference of about 25 minutes, which probably is about 12, 13 miles, depending on traffic. And now I'm going to bring up the issue. Toiletry and hygiene. Okay, so this is a big issue right now, not only in Winston-Salem, but nationally, and I don't know about internationally because I talked to my friends in India. They closed her school down. She teaches over in India. I talked to my other friend on Facebook, Facebook friends, and asked them what's the situation going on in other countries. And I believe that the unique thing about social media is that you have the ability to not just hear what the news is telling you or whatever your source is telling you, but you have the ability to talk to individuals that are actually in real time going through the same thing that you're going through, but from a different perspective. So that is one of the blessings of Facebook, Instagram, or whatever social media medium that you use. So toiletry and hygiene seem to be two of the, I guess, most sought after and in-demand products right now. I suppose whoever owns these companies is making quite a bit of buku cash. All right, so toiletry and hygiene, and then of course, when I say hygiene specifically, we're talking about hand sanitizers, Lysol, and let's talk about Lysol for 1 second. So originally, if you were on Facebook, you'll know that there was a post where a person put the can up and it's like, human coronavirus, and it's on the back of the Lysol, will kill 99.9% of germs. And a couple of quote-unquote scientists or doctors say, oh no, that doesn't work because this is novel coronavirus. In fact, let me see if I can find that article. I can't find my mouse. Oh, there it is. So Lysol and coronavirus. So Lysol, it says popular disinfectant brand as effective against bacteria and viruses, was mentioned by a lot of people in general as they share concerns about the new coronavirus strain 2019 nCoV. But in the first post above from Facebook, a commenter said Lysol and Clorox wipes fight human coronavirus. And we saw that. We saw images on Facebook that Lysol would do this, so forth and so on. Okay. I'm also at the same time looking at the COVID-19, also known as SARS or nCoV, and I'm looking at the different places of infection and deaths and recovered. So China mainland has the most, obviously, at 80,000 and 928. Italy second. We talked about elderly underlying conditions. Italy has one of the oldest populations on the planet. Then it's Iran, who's having a issue over there with 17,000. And then we keep going down. So the world total, according to this, and it may be accurate or inaccurate, 218,000. Interesting couple places that are listed. There's Nepal at 1, Liberia 2, Kenya 7. And in fact, I talked to somebody over in Kenya, and they told me at that time there were like 3 infections in Kenya. And this is generally interesting because most times when there's a pandemic, the countries that are developing countries or third world countries generally suffer greater than the countries that are developed. Of course, those countries don't have necessarily all of the finances or the infrastructure in place whereby they can have a lot of international travelers and the spread of the disease by contact through travel. So that may be play a role in it as well. Obviously, I don't know everything, but I'm just saying. So there's videos of Lysol and coronavirus, and this was 2 weeks ago, and then a month ago, coronavirus explained, and so forth and so on. So that's interesting when we talk about Lysol. Now, originally they said no. Now, in fact, I emailed myself something because I found it to be interesting, because I did see that article or that ad or whatever it is that you want to call it on coronavirus. And I don't think, I'm generally try to keep a measure, keep a level head about myself. Not saying that I do all the time, but I emailed myself. I know that's stupid, but I emailed myself the article, and I'm just looking for it right now on my email list. If I can find it, I have 1,000 emails in here, and I really, really, really need to clean this out. But I'm lazy, and I admit it, and I procrastinate. So that's Tanya Osborne. Yahoo, 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 Yahoo. Disinfectant list is what I'm looking for. Bingo. Okay, so I emailed myself this, and this came from Apple News, and I'm opening it up right here. And bingo. These cleaners kill coronavirus. Lysol, Clorox, Purell products make EPA, Environmental Protection Agency's disinfectant list. This was listed, published by Kelly Tyko in the USA Today, published at 11:30 p.m. on March 5th, 2020, a couple weeks ago. So it says the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has released a list of disinfectants to protect against the spread of coronavirus. According to the EPA, products on the list have qualified for use against COVID-19 through the agency's Emerging Viral Pathogen Program, where manufacturers provide the EPA with data that shows their products are effective against harder-to-kill viruses. Coronaviruses are what are called enveloped viruses, meaning they are one of the easiest types of virus to kill with the appropriate disinfectant product. That is by the Environmental Protection Agency. Furthermore, it reads, using the correct disinfectant is an important part of preventing and reducing the spread of illnesses, along with other critical aspects such as hand washing. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Andrew Willer said in a news release, EPA is providing this important information in a public and transparent manner on disinfectant products to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. And I will go back and emphasize this. According to the EPA, products on the list have qualified for the use against COVID-19 through the agency's Emerging Viral Pathogen Program, where manufacturers, whoever's manufacturing all of these quote-unquote disinfectants, provide the EPA with data. I will say that again. Emerging Viral Pathogen Program, where manufacturers provide the EPA with data that shows their products are effective against harder to kill viruses. And then there is a picture that's encapsulated in it. And the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says that for disinfection, diluted household bleach solutions, alcohol solutions with at least 70% alcohol, and most common EPA registered household disinfectants should be effective. The CDC also mentioned another list with EPA approved emerging viral pathogen claims from the American Chemistry Council Center for Biocide Chemistries. Many of the same products from the EPA list are also on that list. And then it goes on and on and on. And then it gives the EPA list of registered disinfectants. Number 1, Clorox disinfectant wipes. Excuse me, take a sip. 2 on the list, Clorox commercial solutions. 3, Clorox disinfectant spray. Clorox multi-surface cleaner and bleach. Then it gets down into Lonzo and then Lysol. Lysol Clean and Fresh Multi-Surface Cleaner. Lysol Disinfectant Max Cover Mist. Lysol Heavy Duty Cleaner. Disinfectant Concentrate. Oxycide Daily Disinfectant Cleaner. Peak Disinfectant Wipes. Peroxide, Purell, Sani, and it just goes on. And so that's where we stand as far as a list of disinfectants. And so you can see that first Lysol was not one of those registered. But then the EPA says that the manufacturers, quote unquote, have given them data that shows that Lysol is effective in killing the coronavirus, because the data, and when you say data or statistics, then that's supposed to be factual evidence. Okay, so toiletry and hygiene, and getting back to our issue about where we work in your commute. So I commute 1 hour. Most people commute 15 to 25 minutes back and forth to work. Okay, so there is no international airport here in Winston-Salem, nor is there, there is PTI in Greensboro, but Greensboro is about 25, 30 minutes away. Okay, so I'm here. Let me get this right. So this is me right here in Winston. I commute an hour to Newton. So I'm going to make a circle around that, and I'm going to make a circle around here. That's my circle of influence. Anything within a radius, I'm going to put the R there, of about an hour, right? And I'm going to make that loop there. Forgive my circles. Okay, so somebody else works in Newton, and they commute to Hickory. And I'm going to put it, Hickory right there. Hickory is about 12 minutes from Newton, where I work at, and there's no international airport in Hickory. Let's say they lived in Wilkesboro. Wilkesboro is about an hour where I used to live, and I used to commute from Wilkesboro to Newton, so that's about an hour. So I'm going to put a Wilkes right there. I'm going to say that's 60 minutes, and that's 12 minutes. Let's say they commute to Charlotte, about 45 minutes into the Charlotte area. I'm going to put a circle right there. Charlotte has an international airport. We definitely know that. Now for the people that live here in Winston, on your daily commute, 20 to 25 minutes is your circle of contact on a daily basis. And whoever it is that you come in contact on that daily basis. Toiletry and hygiene. Why do I make this point? If you do not, and I have, if you're not an international traveler, you have no direct contact with international travelers. You have no passive contact with international travelers. You're not 80 years old. You have no underlying medical conditions. Underlying conditions. You have no underlying medical conditions. You're not a minor. You don't have diabetes, which could be listed under line. You don't have any lung, abnormals. And you're in Winston-Salem, whether you go north, east, west, or south of Winston-Salem, and you commute 25 to 25 minutes, even if you go all the way to Yadkinville, into Yadkin County, or you go to Wilkes, which is about an hour. And I know because I used to live in North Wilkesboro. Oh, I spelled that wrong. Anyway, the point being, so if you're here in Winston-Salem and your circle of travel takes you within 20 to 25 minutes, you have no one that you know as being an international traveler in your direct line of contact. You have no one that's been an international traveler in your passive line of contact. That means indirect. You're not 80 years old. You have no underlying conditions. You're not a minor. You're not diabetic. You don't live in a nursing home. You don't have any abnormalities of your lung. You're not suffering from any sickness. Otherwise, you're in pretty good health. You don't travel to Hickory on a daily basis. You don't travel to Charlotte on a daily basis because you're secluded. It's about an hour and a half down 77 or whichever way you want to go. You don't travel to Raleigh on a daily basis, which has a lot of international travelers. And you're here, which most of the population of Winston-Salem lives within Winston-Salem, Clemens, Rural Hall, where I live over in the Stanleyville area, Louisville, and your commute and your circle of commute and the people that you communicate with on a daily basis, you and your children, are not in any one of these categories. Toiletry and hygienic problems are not probably high on your list of emergency needs or necessary needs unless simply you fact that you really want them. And I will say the reason that that is because it's highly unlikely that you will be in the area or the vicinity of someone that has contracted or will contract the coronavirus. Now, in our own, and I'm going to erase this, in our city, we do know that there were 2 contractions at City Hall. I will say something that I did not cover. So I am one of the College Advisory Board executive team members. I am there in City Hall maybe, I'm not gonna say maybe, but once a month to sit on that board, and what we discuss is through the Human Relations Department and through my school. I'm very fortunate and honored to partake in that and to be representing Forsyth Tech Community College as well as the city. So we know that there were 2 contractions, and I like to write things down. I hope that you're being able to see this. I should probably have a darker 2 contractions. They were at City Hall. Okay. Now I'm going to speculate, and this is just my speculation. So at City Hall, there probably are some international travelers. There probably are people with underlying medical conditions, and there are definitely people that are above the age of 40. So between above the age of 40, you could possibly be at risk, but particularly above the age of 80, or if you're elderly. And when people are older, unfortunately, because of the way life is and the frailty of life, we're more living out our term than, we don't have the necessary the vigor that we had when we were younger. Okay, so probably falling into the statistics of international traveler and so forth and so on. So let's get back to the fact that toiletry and hygiene. And the reason I will talk about toiletry and hygiene because this pandemic and the way that we spend our money matters. Now, I'm looking up something here. Average income, North Carolina. Okay, so in North Carolina right now, according to this numbers, the current, and I want to look at specifically Winston-Salem. I'm going to look list of North Carolina locations per capita income, and I've got the list up here. Forsyth County. Ooh, look at this. Okay, so Forsyth County per capita income right here is $26,000 approximately. All right. It says Forsyth County, the median household income is $46,000 approximately. I'll say H for household, we say PC for per capita. And then it goes on to say that the median family income for Forsyth County, approximately $60,000. And then the last number is the population of Forsyth County, 350,000. 350,000 plus is the pop. And then the number of households in Forsyth County registers at 140 plus K. Okay, so the per capita income is 26,000. Household income is 46,000. Median 60,000. Median family income 60,000. 350,000 population and 140,000 plus number of households. Now let's look at average salary in Winston. And it'll make sense. Winston-Salem. Average salary. I'm looking for this again, and I'll tell you what page that I'm looking at. Winston-Salem pay scale. Excuse me. Average pay per hour. Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Come on now, come on. Bingo, North Carolina Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, this is the May 2018 State Occupational Employment and Wage Estimates of North Carolina. Okay, so in North Carolina, if you're in management, there are 191,000, according to this list. 43.5% of them employment jobs, and the median wage for a manager is $50.99. But if I took all occupations and did your median hourly wage, it would be $17.19, or $17.19. Now let's go down some numbers. Education administrators make $36 an hour. Lodging managers, $39 an hour. Construction managers, $46 an hour. Preschool and daycare, possibly $21 an hour. Emergency management directors, $34 an hour. Fundraisers, $26 an hour. Meeting convention players, $20 an hour. Loan officers, $34 an hour. Now you can see all of these people are generally professionals, right? And then we get down into architecture and engineering occupations. Then it's life science and physical science occupations, all right? And then there's legal occupations, $47 an hour. Education and training, $20.99. And it keeps going on down, 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 and 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 down, 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 down. But the average was $17 if we took all the occupations together, right? And now I'm going to look up another one. Average hourly pay, Winston-Salem. City of Winston hourly pay or salaries in Winston-Salem combined is $235,000 or for an owner-operated driver, but I'm going to look it up on Indeed. So if you're a cleaner, a lot of people are cleaners, they make $932 an hour. Company driver, $1,100. Customer service representative or CSR, people that stand at the advanced auto counterparts or many of the auto counters, $12 an hour. English teacher, $20 an hour. Maintenance technician, $17 an hour. Registered nurse, they make about $1,900, $2,000 per week. They make good money. Truck driver, $1,165 a week. Registered nurse, so forth. What is the average salary for jobs in Winston-Salem? The average salary in Winston-Salem, North Carolina ranges approximately $12.22 per hour for a customer service representative to $2,186. And we can factor that out. I'm going to say $2,186 is about $30 plus per hour. Most people do not work that because they don't have degrees. 1, 2, and 6 divided by 40. $54 an hour. Right? So people are making between 12 and 54. The average person in Winston-Salem is probably making 12. Now let's see how that makes sense, and then why does toiletry and hygiene have a factor in what it is that we do. So let's say you make, I would think that most people don't make the average, say 14. Let's just say $14 an hour. Times 40. That way, I'm not going to cheat. So let's say 560. About 560 a week. Now, most people that make this have to pay a little health insurance. So let's say you take out 50, 510. That's good, right? Health insurance. A little bit Medicare, right? Let's say a little bit for dental. 503. And then let's multiply that by, you got to pay federal and Medicaid. Multiply that times 0.7625. And I always like to use that number because it gives us a general. And then that leaves us with $427 a week times 4. About $1,708 per month. Now I'm going to put that here, and then I'm going to put DIS and income. So I have a mortgage because I'm in the process of buying my home. A lot of people don't have mortgages. I will assume that they are renting or living or however it is that they're doing. So 17.8. Let's just say in Winston-Salem, I'm gonna be generous. I'm gonna say $600 for rent. 1108. Gotta eat. Be generous. 250. Remember what I said? A household. That's probably not gonna feed 4 people. We're gonna be generous. So 1108 $158. Gotta have gas, $150. $708. Right? Now that's just food and gas. Gotta pay the electric bill. Be generous again. $600. Running out of space. $600 left over right now. Some people like TV, but I'm going to say you don't watch TV, but you like internet. $540. But this is a household. This would probably work good for a person like me, possibly. That's probably not going to get it done for a person like me. Got to pay the car note. Hope you got good credit. 0, right? 9, 2 from 5, right? $290. Darn it. Got to pay insurance. I'm going to be generous. $110. $170. Oh, wait a minute. I got an iPhone or a Galaxy. Being generous. $110. $60. And it goes on and on and on. I could probably stop right there, but you get my point. So, the average person living in Winston-Salem, if they make $14 an hour times 40 hours a week, after taxes and everything, end up with $1,708. And then that big word right there, discretionary income, after all is said and done, is what you have left over. So if your discretionary income is $60 per week, which makes it $240 per month, and you're going out and you're buying and you're using that money and you're buying extra toiletry or extra hygienic products, or you're over shopping, and here's another thing to add to that equation that we definitely know, and I don't say this in a jest. This is called, most people live check to check. Now, if you're watching and you don't live check to check, and when I say check to check, that doesn't mean that if your check doesn't come, your rent's going to be not given in, or you're going to get kicked out of your house, you're going to get evicted, or you're not going to be able to pay your car note, or whatever your circumstance is. When I say check to check, it means that if the checks don't come within a period, you can't afford to miss 4 or 5 checks in a row, because you basically are living check to check and you don't have a lot of credit, or if you do have credit, you still couldn't pay off the credit. And that's a situation that's interesting, because most people also don't have between $1,000 and $2,000 saved or in their checking account. And that's unique. So if you're living check to check, or you're in this situation where you're making between $12 and $14 an hour, and you're not in the upper echelon of the Winston-Salem Society or the fabric, where you're making enough that you can support your discretionary income purchases, and you're going out now because there's a pandemic, and you're going into Walmart, and you're going into Sam's, and you're going into Costco, and you're going into the Food Lion, and you're spending all the discretionary income that you have, whether you're on Medicare or welfare or whatever the case may be, and you're spending that now, what will you do later? Because if this turns out to be a long-term problem, and you're taking short-term solution, you're giving a short-term solution to it, in the short term, you may have a lot of supplies. But in the long term, if you don't have that thing called money, you could be out in the cold when it comes to your supplies, when it comes to your bills, when it comes to your finances, when it comes to taking your children to the hospital, gas, insurance, and all the all the quote-unquote intrinsic expenses that we need in order to have this quote-unquote quality of life that we have as Americans. And so now it behooves the people that have done this to take a step back, to relax. You've done these extraordinary measures, and now you have the opportunity to reassess and say, okay, here's where I am. This is what I've done. Do I need to slow down? Do I need to pull it back? And need to take a broader picture of exactly what's going on and decide that, you know what, why don't I shop as I normally would? Because if I continue at this rate that I'm going, in a few months or in a few weeks and some in a few days, there will be no end in sight, and I won't have anything, I won't have any resources to then meet my needs or accommodate my needs. And so it behooves the people, the average person in Winston-Salem, not to do these extraordinary measures, not to go out and buy extra toiletry, not to go out and buy extra hygienical products, not to be buying extra anything, but go on your normal schedule buying program, whatever your normal schedule buying program is, and continue to put money to the side if you're capable of doing that. But whatever it is that you were doing normally, don't get out of the norm under the circumstances. Because if you continue on the pace that you're going, if in fact that you're going along those paces, then it probably will get you into some financial problems, probably will get you into financial ruin. And then a month from now, you'll be looking back saying, I wish that I hadn't done that. Possibly. I'm not saying that you will, but I'm saying the risk of doing that. And so it takes us to be a little bit prudent. We've met our short-term goals. Now let's think about the intermediate ones and then the long-term ones. Like if this goes on for 6 months and I don't make X, Y, and Z, how am I going to be able to afford all of the things that I need to afford? How am I going to be able to take care of my family? How am I going to be able to get back and forth to work? What if I can't go to work and now I'm not receiving income coming in and I've spent all this money assuming that I will continue to make money? Then what happens? So I'm just saying, take a far view on this situation and not get so emotional or allow the sensationalism of our news system to kind of provoke us to do things that we wouldn't otherwise do. All right, so that deals with that. Now the hand sanitizer and food thing can be an issue, and I'm going to say why it can be an issue in the long term. And I'm going to put a nasty little word up here. Ooh, it's a nasty word. Nobody likes to talk about it because our economy is going really good. But let's say inflation. And I'm going to type this in, and I want to say, definition. Okay, so inflation, definition, the word is a noun. The action of inflating something or the condition of being inflated. Economics, a general increase in prices and fall in the purchasing value of money. And now let's look at the real definition. Inflation is an economic phenomenon that increases the cost of goods an individual needs to live and maintain a certain standard of living. Classically defined, inflation is too many dollars chasing too few product or goods tracked each quarter using the Consumer Pricing Index, or the CPI. I am a supply chain student, and I'm not going to be able to give you all the facets of this because that is actually economics, not supply chain, but it does affect each and every one of us. And so let's get into it a little bit. All right, so we talked a little bit about wages, salary, discretionary income, and having a long-term perspective for an immediate problem, otherwise known as the pandemic of coronavirus 2020. We see stimulus measures being taken on, or quote-unquote being discussed by our government, whether they be in the House of Representatives or the state Senate under Leader McConnell. We see President Trump coming out stating that there will probably be some type of quote-unquote stimulus package whereby every American citizen should receive $1,000. Some would say it's $2,000. Whatever the packet it possibly could be is being discussed, whatever the means to provide some quote-unquote extraordinary relief during these quote-unquote extraordinary times. All right, so we talk about this word inflate, and it's pretty cool. So flate, inflation, so that means putting something into it, and it's the price of causing an increase of price per good, per individual, for the things that we need to continue our quality of life, to inflate things. And we talked about discretionary income a minute ago and how buying things and taking a long-term view. So let's just say we're going to take one person, we're going to say 1P, and then we're going to say 1 unit. I told you that I worked for Tyson Foods, and so now I'm just going to put this word over here, chicken. So if one person needed 1 unit of chicken, let's just say it cost 89 cents today, probably doesn't. Chicken, a whole chicken, probably, depending on Tyson, let's say $3. Might be about $3, maybe a little bit more, $4, whatever the case may be. A whole chicken. So if one person buys 1 unit of chicken today, $3. But let's go down here and say, and this is a nasty word too, I'm just going to put the word gestation. So how long does it take for a chicken to give another chicken, or gestation periods of food animals? So let's look at gestation periods of food animals. Food animal production medicine. And we're going to pull that up. Gestation aging app was developed in University of Wisconsin School of Veterinary Medicine. And then it talks about the age. So a cow, right? Gestation days, 78 days to parturition, 2002. Or 202, excuse me. All right. But we're actually looking for the gestation age of something that's commonly eaten in the market. Of chicken. How long is the gestation period for a chicken? The answer is chickens don't get pregnant. They take 24 hours to produce an egg, which leaves its body. When the hen decides it's time to be a mother hen, she goes broody and stays on that egg along with several more, and all she can gather from other chickens. The hen sits on the eggs for 21 days, and the eggs start to hatch. The mother hen then takes care of the chicks for about 3 months before starting to lay eggs again. So 22 days. So if you bought a chicken, just without throwing in the production part, let's say 22 days. So the store had it, right? We gotta think about the cost. So whoever has a chicken, there's the land, there's the feed, there's the equipment, there's the labor, right? There's feed, there's equipment, there's labor, there's the maintenance, there's the power, there's the fuel, there's also transportation to get it from point A. And I'm not giving you an exhaustive list of all the things. So that's just the person that has the chicken there. The chicken then, after the gestation period, has to go to a factory, whether that be at wholesale or by auction or individual, goes to the factory. From the factory, has to be produced, right? Labeled, packaged, all that other stuff. Then it has to be transported. And then it goes to the store. And then you buy it. So you said one person buying one chicken, $3, right? So all of this stuff comes into play from the supply chain perspective. So if you buy it today, and let's just say you bought it today, right? And your lead time, or supply time, it takes 22 days. From the gestation period, when the chicken is ready to go to market, right? Or when it's born, 22 days. But then it has to go through all of this other process as well. It has to go to the factory, has to be produced, has to be transported. Now, I used to work for Tyson Foods, and I can tell you that Tyson Foods, at that plant, for plant 1 and 2, eviscerated, killed, however you want to say it, 2.5 million pounds of chicken. And that was just one plant. And Tyson is the largest chicken or producer or manufacturer in the world, if I'm correct. And I will look that up just so I can, if I remember it right. Who is the largest chicken producer in the world? The United States is the largest producer of poultry in the world, and why wouldn't it be, considering the hordes of fast food franchise? After that, Brazil has overtaken China as the second largest chicken producer, while it is also the largest exporter at the same time, with the USA in second as an exporter. And then it goes in top chicken producers in the world, top 10 countries list. And United States, 18.29 metric tons. Brazil, 13.6 metric tons. Indonesia, Thailand, Turkey, Argentina, Mexico, Russia, India. Top chicken producing countries in the world. United States, 18.29 million metric tons. Now I'm going to say the top chicken company in the world. 2007 top poultry company, 2017 actually. 2017 by What Global Media. 2017 top poultry company rankings revealed for U.S. and Latin America. The February issue of Egg Industry magazine and March issues of Watts, Poultry USA, and Industry Avicola magazines highlighted the latest rankings for the top egg, broiler, turkey producers in the U.S. and Latin America. And then it goes into the numbers and then the broiler firms. And we're going to profile the data, and that's what I'm looking for. 34 broiler firms, 23. I want the actual names. 313 top countries online database. That's what we're looking for. Here it is. Leading poultry companies worldwide production. JBS SA in Brazil. Heads slaughtered annually in millions. 3,500. Tyson Foods, United States, 1,991.6, and that is in millions. So Tyson Food is one of the leading. It's listed as second according to the WattAgeNet.com. You can look it up yourself. World's top companies, the world's leading broiler, turkey, and egg producers. So I used to work here at Tyson Foods. And at that time, because I was the inventory fulfillment clerk, and I will tell you a little bit about what I did at Tyson. So I walked in the door at Tyson. I was just working on the line. Then after the line, I became the line leader, which means that I was responsible for my team of about 6 members, and we were in the labeling and packaging area of the plant. And so we would label the chicken that would come out of the 28-degree room, 24 and 26 pallets of chicken on a truck. There probably will be, depending on the size of the boxes, whether those boxes are 60 pounds a piece, there will be 8 stacks of chicken going up high, and that will give you 40 boxes of chicken, like whole chicken, 40 boxes of 60-pound chickens. Inside those boxes will be or shipping area. I went upstairs into an office where I was at the inventory job. From the inventory job, what I did was that I did paperwork and I produced reports internally and externally for the different departments within and without, whereby we had to know exactly what the poundage was or the tonnage of the chicken that was being produced, where it was, how many orders were complete, and what was the quote-unquote running inventory or the cycle of inventory. After that, I went back downstairs to the shipping department, and then I went from the shipping department to the fillet department where I was a team lead. There was about 40 or 50 people that were regularly under my supervision. And there we're dealing with the raw chicken as it was being put in the trays, packaged, and then placed in the 28-degree room, and then so forth and so on. From there, I went to the MDM, which is the mechanically produced chicken, otherwise known as hot dogs and things of that nature. Understanding how that is made up, I'm not going to tell you that, obviously, online. I don't want to get myself in trouble with Tyson, nor deal with their intellectual property or things of that nature. And so, from the beginning, when the chicken comes in, I knew the numbers. To when it went out, I knew the numbers as being in different roles within that within that company. And it's an interesting thing, food manufacturing and food production. But getting back to this, so if you're buying 1 unit of chicken today, and you buy more than what you're buying, the store has a cycle time when it can be replenished. And as we see with toilet paper and sanitizer and these things, if you go in the stores now, you're not going to find them. Some stores are quote unquote put on personal quotas where you can't buy but a certain amount of the items, and that's important because we're talking about lead times. So if a store generally received, like I was talking today in Dollar Tree, I asked them, well, you generally get a truck on Thursdays. They said, yes. Okay, so, and at Sam's, the truck came in this morning 20 minutes later after it replenished its stocks. All of the, excuse me, all of the tissue was gone again. So if Sam's generally had a lead time, and Sam's is a large store where you get a lot of wholesale things. Let's say Sam's lead time was every week, but now their trucks are coming every day to replenish their shelves and their inventory, or quote unquote their on-hand inventory. So they're probably not working on JIT, which is just-in-time inventory anymore, because now the factory or whatever it is, their distribution center, has to have a greater capacity of flow of product coming from one end to the other, because the demand is greater than the supply right now. And I definitely want to address that. So on this side, we're going to put demand. And this side, we're going to put supply. Now in this case of toiletry, hygiene, food, in a lot of stores, a lot of the common stores that we shop at, whether it be Food Line, Publix, in New York it'd be Food Imperium, Walmart, Harris Teeter, whatever the case may be. And I'm just gonna throw a line up there, right? And I'm gonna put the price, because it's kind of static, right? But now the demand has increased, so it's bringing this down here, because now you need more. Now the supply can't meet it, so it's going down here too, because it has less. And then here is your cycle time. And cycle time just means the ETA of your supply. I'm just going to say that. It doesn't mean that, but I'm going to say that. So now we need more because we have less of this, and so you need to send more of this through here to meet the demand. So let's just say that we keep going at the pace that we're going at, where people are just constantly buying up everything in the store, Now I can say that we probably can't keep that pace up. Most people can't keep that pace up because they won't have the finances or the resources to do that. Hypothetically speaking, let's just say that they did. If this continues to, the demand continues to be at the rate that it is, and the supply can't meet that demand, then this price, that's why I drew the arrow, will go up. So what's costing you now 80 cents a roll at a certain period, not because we didn't have enough resources, but we're running out of resources, or the resources can't get to the market, can't get to the production, which allows the product to get to the market in a timely fashion, which creates our cycle of lead time. So if it's, let's say it's 4 weeks now, and we keep this going up, and then it's 3 weeks, and then, because the cycle time, and then it's 2 weeks, and then it's 1 week. What happens is the resources over here can't meet this production schedule, because it can't meet the demand. Not only that, but then the people over here producing probably gonna lay them off. They're gonna come over here as well. So the income that they have, they're gonna lose out. This is gonna continue to go skyrocket. This price might go skyrocket, and what you're paying 80 cents from now might be $1.20. What you're paying $3 from now might be $7 in a little while. And so by this hysteria, it's possible to inflate prices, not because something major happened, because all of a sudden our manufacturing, our production systems can't get it done. They're just being overwhelmed. And this is through hysteria and panic. And that's why it behooves us as a quote-unquote people and a country not to do that. Continue on your regularly programmed schedule. If you continue on your regularly programmed schedule, then you won't cause this to happen. Because if you don't have money when this happens, guess what? You don't get it. And the people that saved their money and thought of a long term, well, they're going to be able to afford that. And then when they'll be able to afford it, then the price comes back down. When the price comes back down, guess what? You still can't afford it because you don't got any money. And that's just a gentleman and a layman's way of telling you that the country by itself, without any other interference, can cause inflation. You see the Fed doing extraordinary measures to keep the economy rolling. And also, they're thinking about the supply chain. Can the supply chain or our production system keep up with the demand at the current rate? And I can tell you right now, just guessing, and I'm not the smartest guy, I don't even have my degree just yet, we can't do that. We can't do that. And so it behooves the American citizens collectively, individually, to operate under the premise that we will break our supply chain. We will break our production system if we continue at the pace that we're going. Specifically, the two manufacturing quote unquote systems that are out there right now: toilet paper, which has a shelf life, and sanitizer. Whoever's making those, whether it be Purell or whatever the companies make, they're seeing now that whatever their cycle time was before, it's decreasing and decreasing. When the cycle time decreases, that also means whatever's in your inventory decreases, because now you're sending more of it into the distribution centers or more into your outlets to be sold. And now you also have to speed up your production process because the demand is so great. When you're speeding up the production process, then that also costs money, because now you have to get your resources. You're talking about production planning, where you have to get things from point A to point A. So now you got to contact all your vendors to see if you can get the products into your company, into your production lines, and out the door to meet this demand. And this demand is just continuing. And if you walk around Winston-Salem, which I did, and I walked in Sam's, and I walked in Walmart, and I walked in Dollar Tree, and I walked in Family Dollar, and you look on the shelves and you don't see two items: toiletry, hygienic products. The strangest thing is that if this were to continue for months, I would figure that people might want to get some toothpaste, some mouthwash, some things like that as well. Some soap. If we're washing our hands, we might want to wash our body. But I'm just being facetious and sarcastic about that. But the general idea or the concept is that we need to slow down on this demand. We need to keep people working, because we don't want there to be a lack of resources, and if we can't produce anything, for them to say that, you know what, we're not producing what we used to produce, so we don't need these people, and we don't need these people over here, because workman comp is going to be a problem if we continue at the rate that we're going in. So people might not be able to get that. Then there are people that have underlying conditions. There are people that are on welfare. There are people on the fringe of society. There are people that are homeless. There's a lot of different factors that go into this, because just out of this panic and hysteria, we have put a burden on our supply chain system. And that cannot continue for us to continue to be successful from that side, and for you also to get the products that you need to meet your quality of life, which brings you back to that nasty little word again, inflation. Let's not cause inflation out of panic and hysteria. I don't know if anybody's talking about it, but the possibility of that occurring in the future is going to be pretty high if we continue to buy at the rate that we're going, if we continue to spend all of our discretionary income hoarding up products that we might not necessarily need, because we don't know the outcome of everything. So I would caution everybody, take a chill pill, relax, calm down, go about your daily life, take the necessary precautions, wash your hands. If you have sanitizer, use it. Stay within your certain confines. If you were not an international traveler before, you're not going to be an international traveler now. If you were not in connection with people that were international travelers, you probably are not going to be in connection with people that are international travelers. If you touch something that you think is suspect, do the old hand wipe, get it done. Talk to your family. Might be nice to get your kids off the internet and get them out riding bikes. In your neighborhood, you may not be able to commute or go out into parks because of your concerns, but they can ride a bike in your neighborhood. They can sit outside and kick the ball around. They can play jump rope. They can play jacks. They could sit on the stoop and quote unquote converse or interact, develop their social skills. Many things that they can do. You can have little family game nights, whatever the case may be. But what you don't need to do is panic. You don't need to do abnormal measures that you were not doing before. And you need to stay calm and think through this process. The more people that we have thinking through the process, the more people that we have that are being vigilant, that are being vigilant, that are taking the necessary precautions, that are meeting all the measures that quote unquote that are given by our leaders and our authorities. If you're a student, continuing your studies, whatever the case may be, I think that would behoove and that would be more beneficial for us. I believe Dr. Drew Prensky, and I do like to talk about Dr. Drew. If I could just say what he said. He said, Dr. Drew says, Europe travel ban excessive but effective. He also says in the Washington Examiner, and I like Dr. Drew about what he said, and I'm pulling up that article right now. What I have a problem with is the panic and the fact that businesses are getting destroyed, that people's lives are being upended, not by the virus, but by the panic. Penske said in an interview with CBS because they are hurting people. This was in an article in the Washington Examiner that was written by Emma Colton on March 9th. That was just last week. And I happen to like that article. And he went on to go, a bad flu season is 80,000 dead. We've got about 8. We talked about the statistics earlier, about 20,000. We have 100 from Corona. Penske said, which should you be more worried about, influenza or Corona? 100 versus 18,000. It's not a trick question. And look, everything that's going on with the New York cleaning the subways and everyone using Clorox wipes and get your flu shot, which should be the other message. That's good. That's a good thing. So I have no problem with the behaviors. And then it went on to talk about California, Washington State, New York, and Oregon as among the states that declare states of emergencies as the virus spread. And now, like I said earlier today, I think it was reported on MSNBC, that approximately 7,000 people have been, quote unquote, infected, possibly, or contracted the coronavirus. I think the numbers are specific and very interesting. And again, I will show you how to do it one more time. So I hope this calms people down. I hope that it allays your fears. But nevertheless, everybody is an individual and allowed to think and do as they please. But if you just take this number one more time, let's say that right now we're at 7,000. And I want you to divide that by 327 million. And that will give you, quote unquote, the percentage of people to the U.S. population that have been infected. That's less than 1%. I want to say that again. That's less than 1%. It's not even close to 1% of our population has been infected or contracted, possibly. And we really don't know because the test methods are not, quote unquote, confirmed that we can readily identify 100%, or I will not say that because I'm a doctor. Let's assume that it is readily identifiable that 7,000 people have contracted the coronavirus. And I believe the virus started, we knew about it in January. So from January to today is March 18th. Let's say January 18th, being hypothetically, February 18th, March 18th. So 60 days. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, 70,000 divided by 60 would give us the amount of people per day on average, even though we know that the average is a little skewed because more people have been identified as contracting it of late. Specifically, I think last week we were in the 2,000, so we've had a 100% increase of those that were infected or contracted. Again, we need to think about things that, those factors that are involved in that. International travel, people with direct contact of those that were international travel, people with passive contact with those that were international travel, metropolitan areas, and I think you see a lot, you see NBA players having contracted coronavirus. NBA players are surrounded by international reporters on a daily basis, right? Specifically Chinese reporters, because the NBA is a global game, and there are a lot of reporters, and China loves the game of basketball, all right? And then there are actors who have traveled all across the world, whether it be, I think the big case was the one that's in the news a lot. You see Tom Hanks, and then obviously there have been politicians that, quote unquote, come in contact with those that have been affected or infected or contracted or around those that have contracted coronavirus. And so again, you look at those two words, metropolitan areas, international travelers, underlying medical condition, a lot of politicians are older, right? Being the three, quote unquote, identifiable factors to enhance the possibility of putting yourself at risk. So again, if you live in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, as I do, and you commute on a daily basis between 12 to 25 minutes to work, you do not go out of Forsyth County. We have 2 cases in Forsyth County, and I believe there might be possibly a couple of other cases that have been indicated or reported by the news of late. If you continue on your normal basis, but you take care to do the precautionary measures of quote unquote social distancing yourself from others, and you're using your hand sanitizer, and you're taking all these measures, then you're probably not at risk to run into somebody that has been infected or contracted the coronavirus. I pray that you don't. So I hope that this has been informational. I hope that it has been entertaining as well. I'm glad that we have the opportunity to have Google, Safari, Alexa, whatever it means that you use to gain your information. I'm glad that we can look up articles and go through these in a caution and I guess a diligent, a rather methodical way, where we can look at the statistics, we can look at the information that has been gathered, and we can come to some type of conclusion. Right now, I would be of the persuasion that I do travel within an hour of Charlotte International Airport. However, I don't work around anybody that's in international travel that I know of. I don't know if they have come in direct contact with anybody that's an international traveler. I don't know their family or familial situation. But I could say that we're being very diligent at my job in respect to the situation and taking the proper measures. So I feel very comfortable about that. I also feel very comfortable about my neighborhood. The people in my neighborhood are very, very nice and very kind, and I'm thankful for them, as well as the authorities that work in my neighborhood that lend a hand and are definitely on watch for us. I'm so glad that we don't have any of the vandalism or, for the most part, people that are doing unscrupulous things in our community and in the city of Winston-Salem. So I applaud all of Winston-Salem, the entire population of Forsyth County, because I don't think there's been an increase of crime. I don't think there has been an increase of social or civil disobedience. I'm very glad to hear that I guess our municipalities and those that are in control or have authority from the mayor's office on down have been upfront, have been definitely proactive, and taken an aggressive approach to this. Thankful for my college that's taken an aggressive approach. We're out on spring break, and we have an extended spring break. Thankful for the information online that has been consistent, letting the students as well as the faculty know exactly what's going on, what are the measures and the steps being taken, what is the expected behavior, and the resumption of ordinary activities, which we do not know right now. So we are on no definite timetable. So as you can see, I'm very proud to live in the city of Winston-Salem, even though I am a native New Yorker, but not necessarily native by birth. But the fact that I grew up there, I pray for each and every other area in the United States, as well as around the world. I have friends that are on Facebook, that are other places on the globe. Obviously, we don't want to see anyone sick. We don't want to see anyone's loved ones sick. Everyone is dealing with their own problems, and that is complicated by the issues that we have on hand. So I pray that everyone is able to get back and forth to work. I pray that whatever medical condition that you have, that is being tended to. Look after our pastors in our churches, definitely being role models, taking the nice steps that they have. Canceling services, even though we don't want to cancel service, we definitely want to meet and gather to worship. So thankful for our medical institutions, whether it be Forsyth or Novant or Wake Forest Baptist Health, for all the work that they're doing, compounded on the work that they were already doing. Thankful for the scientists and even the CDC. Don't necessarily know what to make out of some of the messages. Like I said, first Lysol wasn't, and then Lysol was, and then we hear conflicting reports. I don't necessarily know from my own personal experience. I know that we have a national emergency and it is called a pandemic, but when I look at other things, and I wonder why those are never called pandemic, that's my own personal opinion. You don't have to definitely accept that. So anyway, I'm so glad that you were a part of CK Live 27105. Again, I am Curtis Walker. I'm thankful that you allowed me to come into your homes today. Thankful that you got to share this time. I'm so looking forward to doing this again. Hopefully we're going to have a Saturday morning show. I'm looking for a co-host. I have someone in mind. We'll be able to discuss the events that are taking place on a local level and on a national level. Some things that would be of great interest to us. Obviously, we try to be well-rounded. I try to be well-rounded, so we definitely talk about the financial impact of this pandemic, as well as the economic, but we also talked about the production side of it, and then there's the health side of it as well. So, in the future, I hope that you would tune in one more time to CK Live 27105 and listen again. And I will take this time and sort of be the nation's pastor, and if you will, allow me to pray for everyone within the sound of my voice. So, Father God, we thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for the things that we have learned about this situation. We pray for peace and calm on our nation. We pray for direction and wisdom on our leaders from the head down. That means President Trump, whether people agree with him or not agree with him. We know that, oh Lord, when the leaders of our nation are righteous, the people and the land prosper. We believe that we had an economic system that has been prospering of late. We see that the employment rate is going down all across the board, Lord, and especially for minorities. When I speak of myself, and when I speak of minorities, Lord, you know that I mean not people of color, but those below a certain line of income, and they can be black, white, Jew, Gentile, whatever they may be. We see that the minorities were definitely prospering. We see, Lord, a lot of good things that happen in our nation, even though there may be that those that only show a certain part of the fabric of our nation, but we believe that there are many different people here that are doing great things, that are definitely unified, and that are working together to make a better world, to leave the place in a better place than when we first came in it. So, Lord, instruct us and guide us, give us wisdom for the time at hand. Lead us, oh Lord, through this time. We pray that when we come out, that we will be better as a nation, individually and collectively. We also pray for those that are less fortunate than us. We know there are other nations that do not have the capacity nor the infrastructure to combat on the level pandemics of this and when these things arise. So we pray that we may do our due diligence and we may lend our helping hand as a nation to the other nations. We also pray that when we do that, oh Lord, that they will be frugal with the assistance that it comes, that it will not sit on the side, and that it be not done in a wasteful sense. We also pray, oh Lord, that we come against all of the wars and the famines that are in the world. We pray for the children that do not have parents, do not have shoes, do not have food. We ask you to look after all of our AIDS workers. And when I say AIDS, I don't necessarily mean the acquired immunity deficiency syndrome, but I mean those that are out in the field that are putting themselves at risk to care for others. We thank you, O Lord, for the wisdom, and we thank you for bringing many people and organizations together to combat what is going on, and we ask that you be involved in it. As always, we pray that we may be pleasing, particularly the believers, O Lord, that we would do the right thing. Thank you for Forsyth Tech. Thank you for my job. Thank you for my family. And I think I'm praying that prayer individually, but I will assume that prayer for each and every person, that they will also be very thankful. We lift you up high, and we glorify you, and we say that you are the best that we can possibly have as a friend. And I like to use the word friend because a friend is someone that is intimate and close to you, someone that you can tell your deepest, darkest secrets, and someone that will stand by you through thick and thin, and you are a God that is like that. All these things we commit to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, so that's the end of CK Live 27105 tonight on March 18th, 2020, and we've addressed a lot of issues. So you guys have a great night and enjoy yourself, and I look forward to seeing you again. Bye-bye.